The emperor stood before 1,000,000 heavenly soldiers, his voice echoing with power. Ying Yuan, Jidu Xingjun, and Bei Ming, Xinjun were at the front, their armor gleaming, ready for battle. The emperor's pre-war speech was fiery, urging them to crush the rebellion and restore peace to the Six Realms. On the sidelines, Yandan and other celestial attendants offered prayers for the departing warriors. Ying Yuan's sharp eyes had already pinpointed the weakest link in the enemy's barrier. He ordered the main army to advance towards the demon realm, but he himself would go first to investigate. Yandan watched him leave, her heart tight with worry. That very night, unable to sit still, Yandan dragged Yumo to the sacred temple. This was a place for blessings, usually off-limits. Their friend, Lu Ming, who guarded the temple, was terrified. "We'll get in so much trouble if we're caught," he whispered, but Yandan was determined. Reluctantly, Lu Ming opened the doors, promising to stand guard outside. Inside, Yandan made a wish for her upcoming play to be a huge hit. But mostly, she was there for inspiration, for new stories. She browsed the wishing plaques, chuckling at one from Immortal Lord Mingli, who was clearly smitten with Ying Yuan. She then found Ying Yuan's own plaque. His wish: peace in the Six Realms. How boring, she muttered to herself. Yumo made 2 wishes. One to repay his mentor, Immortal Lord Bei Ming, and another for Yandan's happiness. Yandan, on the other hand, had a long list. Become the best storyteller. Help her sister Z. She ascend to immortality. And see Yumo succeed. And then, almost as an afterthought, she quietly added one more. For Ying Yuan to defeat all his enemies and return safely. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoed through the temple. The massive central pillar, the very foundation of the building, started to tremble and split. Lu Ming burst in, his face pale with horror. If that pillar fell, the temple would be destroyed, and the waters of the sacred Yaoqi would flood the entire 9 heavens. Lu Ming immediately knew this was the work of the demons. And he was right. Miles away, at the celestial barrier, Ying Yuan had found the culprit. The evil god, Zhuan Xiang. Zhuan Xiang sneered, revealing his plan. By destroying the pillar, he would unleash a cataclysm and seize control of the 6 realms, tired of being a pawn to the emperor. Ying Yuan, seeing through his ambition, prepared for a one-on-one duel. Back in the temple, the pillar was cracking faster. Ignoring Lu Ming's desperate pleas, Yandan poured all of her spiritual energy into holding it together. Your power isn't enough! You'll be destroyed! Lu Ming cried, but without a second thought, Emo rushed to her side, adding his own power to hers. Seeing his friends risk everything, Lu Ming had no choice but to join them. The 3 of them, together, fought to hold back disaster. Meanwhile, the battle raged at the front lines. The elders of the demon realm had surrounded Jidu. Just as things looked grim, Ying Yuan swooped in, breaking their formation, only to find himself surrounded.
But Beiming Shenzhen and his forces were right behind, cutting off the demon's escape route.
With the situation momentarily stabilized, Ying Yuan turned to Zhuan Xiang, trying one last time to persuade him to surrender. But the fight was far from over. Zhuan Xiang, unwilling to admit defeat, unleashed his trump card, the 9-tailed serpent, in a final, desperate attempt. Ying Yuan and Jidu Xingjun joined forces to fight the 9-tailed serpent. Ying Yuan's eyes were stung by the serpent's fiery poison.
But he endured the excruciating pain and launched another attack, finally annihilating the 9-tailed serpent.
He then collapsed from the poison. Ketu Starlord rescued Ying Yuan and advised him to return to the Heavenly Medicine Hall to heal his wounds, lest the fire poison invade his lungs and internal organs. Ying Yuan wanted to return to the front lines to fight, but Beiming Immortal Lord arrived shortly after and reported the situation at the front. Zhuan Xiang's retreat route had been cut off, and he had led his troops in a full retreat. Ying Yuan ordered the 2 of them to lead troops to pursue the victory, and they had no choice but to comply. The fire poison in Ying Yuan's body flared up again, and he vomited a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. Yandan, weakened by the damage to the temple's spiritual power, struggled to her feet and went outside to find Zishi there to retrieve a magical artifact. Yan Dan hadn't seen Xiaoxi in a long time, and her excitement was palpable. Zishi, however, was cold and urged her to find the artifact quickly and return to the Heavenly Medicine Hall to report. Yan Dan had no choice but to accompany her. Reaching for the artifact on top of the cabinet, Yan Dan nearly fell due to her weakness. She quickly caught her, scolding her for not cultivating properly and for not fulfilling her duty. Yan Dan didn't want to explain.
She packed up the magical artifacts and left without looking back.
She overheard the celestial attendants praising Yan Dan's intelligence and bravery, mocking her incompetence. Zishi gritted her teeth in anger. Ying Yuan was taken to the Heavenly Healer's Hall. He groggily awoke to find the celestial attendants outside, discussing the war. Although they had won, Jidu Shengjun and the three great emperors had fallen into Zhuangxiang's ambush and entered the demonic realm, resulting in their deaths. 80,000 celestial soldiers and generals had also perished. Ying Yuan's anxiety caused the poison to flare up again, and the celestial attendants hurriedly reported this to the emperor. The emperor rushed to the Heavenly Healer's Hall, only to find that Ying Yuan had already left without saying goodbye. He left the emperor a letter, regretting his departure midway, which led to the deaths of Jadu Starlord and the three emperors. Moreover, the fire poison had already invaded his bone marrow, and he did not want to live in the immortal realm. The emperor was heartbroken. He knew Ying Yuan's personality well, and even if he sent someone to bring him back, Ying Yuan would leave again. The emperor had no choice but to announce to the public that Ying Yuan had recovered from his injuries and had gone down to the mortal realm to cultivate. Currently, only the emperor remains in the immortal realm and the divine realm. He merged the two realms into one, calling it the celestial realm. The underworld was razed to the ground and ceased to exist in this war.
The emperor banished all the remnants of the demon realm to the River of Oblivion, never to leave again.
The demon realm was incorporated into the human realm and collectively called the mortal realm. From then on, there were only three realms: celestial, mortal, and demon. After Ying Yuan left without saying goodbye, the emperor sealed the news, forbidding anyone from entering the Heavenly Medicine Hall or revealing Ying Yuan's condition. The celestial attendants of the Yangsu Heavenly Palace could only hang bells to pray for Ying Yuan. Ignoring the attendants' advice,
Yan Dan insisted on going to the Heavenly Medicine Hall to find Ying Yuan.
The fire poison in Ying Yuan's body had already invaded his bone marrow, causing him to go blind and lose his immortal spirit and divine soul.
Not wanting others to see his current plight, he vanished, blindfolded himself, and wandered across the rooftops.
He accidentally fell, knocking roof tiles to the ground. Yan Dan passed by, unable to see the invisible Ying Yuan, only shards of bricks and tiles. She couldn't help but think of him, and Yan Dan was heartbroken.
She prayed for Ying Yuan's early return so he could see the grand play she had written.
Hearing Yan Dan's heartfelt words, Ying Yuan was filled with mixed emotions. He dared not reveal himself to her, fearing that his death would only cause her more pain. Yan Dan ran away in tears, and Ying Yuan watched her retreating figure, his heart breaking. Yan Dan arrived at the Heavenly Physician's Hall and insisted on going in to take care of Ying Yuan. The Heavenly Physician had no choice but to tell her that
Ying Yuan had bid farewell to the emperor and descended to the mortal realm to relax.
Yan Dan did not believe it at all, so she went to find the Northern Sea Immortal Lord to inquire about the situation.
The Northern Sea Immortal Lord was seriously injured on the battlefield. He had lost his immortal spirit and divine soul.
He was in unbearable pain and only wanted to die. Marshal Huode could not bear to watch and left silently with tears in his eyes. Yan Dan took out the resurrection pill, hoping to save Baiming, Immortal Lord's life. Yamo, hearing the news, rushed over. He didn't want to see Baiming Immortal Lord suffer such torment and wanted to end his life.
Yandan knew Yumo's wish was to transform into human form and reunite with Baiming, Immortal Lord.
She used all her spiritual power to alleviate Baiming, Immortal Lord's pain, wanting him to see Yumo one last time. Baiming, Immortal Lord, gradually awoke. Yumo knelt down and recognized him. Baiming, Immortal Lord, was overjoyed and then passed away. Yandan was heartbroken and devastated. Yumo took out. He gave his own scales to the Northern Sea, Immortal Lord, as a memento. Afterwards, the Emperor led the celestial beings to a funeral for the Northern Sea Immortal Lord and the Star Lord Jadu, among others.
Yumo and Yandan sat on the suspended heart cliff, recalling the Northern Sea Immortal Lord's death on the battlefield.
The indifference of the celestial beings, and the Emperor's mere provision of a coffin. They both sighed deeply. Although the celestial realm was calm and peaceful, the immortals were cold and heartless. Yumo couldn't vent his bitterness. Yandan used her magic to bring rain for the Northern Sea Immortal Lord, promising to take good care of Yumo. Yandan even offered Yumo her shoulder to lean on. The Jade Pool Feast is about to begin, and the heavenly realm is buzzing with excitement. All the gods and immortals have been invited, creating quite a spectacle. Luming, ever the enthusiast, forcibly dragged Yandan along to witness the grand gathering. The Dragon King of the EC arrived with a procession of lavish gifts, a truly dazzling display.
Luming whispered to Yandan that all these treasures would be stored in the treasure pavilion, and after the feast, the Emperor would distribute them.
This gave Yandan an idea. She could use this opportunity to finally sneak the little immortal turtle out of the heavenly realm. The grand performance was set for noon.
Yandan managed to get an invitation for Yumo and even forged a new identity for him as a blackfish spirit.
However, there was a problem. Yumo's cultivation was Yuan strong enough for him to appear in his human form during the day. On top of that, he had already used up most of his spiritual energy and worried he wouldn't make it. He had no choice but to push himself, cultivating overtime to prepare. 3 days flew by, and the day of the performance arrived. The Emperor and all the esteemed guests gathered to watch. Yandan scanned the crowd, her heart sinking a little when she realized neither Ying Yuan nor Yumo was there. It turns out, Yumo had tried multiple times to transform, but he just couldn't maintain his human form in the daylight and had to give up. Despite the absences, the performance was a smashing success. It lived up to all the hype and won first place. The Emperor was beaming, praising Yandan for her brilliant work.
But the celebratory mood was shattered when Marshal Huoda, fueled by drink, began to complain loudly.
He accused the other immortals of being heartless. He pointed out that the bodies of Ji Duxingjun and Bei Mingxianjun were barely cold, yet here everyone was, chatting and laughing as if nothing had happened. His anger boiled over, and he started shouting. Yandan tried to calm him down, but it was no use.
Marshal Huoda directed his fury at the Emperor himself, berating him for his incompetence.
The Dragon King of the East Sea couldn't stand it anymore and stepped forward, rebuking the Marshal for his insolence. The Emperor, his face grim, immediately stripped Marshal Huoda of his military power and sentenced him to retirement at Suspended Heart Cliff. The Marshal, enraged, stormed off. Yandan quickly intervened, trying to smooth things over. She reminded the Emperor of Ying Yuan's wish for peace in the 6 realms, a plea that seemed to soften the Emperor's anger slightly. Wanting to reward Yandan for her contribution to the feast, the Emperor asked what she desired. Yandan, ever clever, volunteered to descend to the mortal realm. She claimed she wanted to experience hardships on behalf of her sister, Zishi.
But her real hope was to gather more material for her stories.
The Emperor readily agreed.
Of course, Yingdong couldn't resist a sarcastic jab at Zishi. Before leaving, Yandan painstakingly sewed a beautiful dress by hand, a parting gift for Ying Yuan before his own descent to the mortal realm. The Emperor approved her request to go to the mortal world, but he couldn't say when Ying Yuan would return. Yandan went to see her sister, Xia Shi, to share the news, expecting her to be pleased. But see, she was anything but. She coldly accused Yandan of using this as an excuse to show off. Yandan was stunned into silence. Zishi's anger escalated, and she slapped Yandan hard across the face.
Ying Deng, who was standing nearby, fanned the flames with more cruel words.
Yandan was completely bewildered, with no idea what she had done to deserve such hatred, as she stood there, hurt and confused.
Ying Deng dragged a still fuming Zishi away to admire the flowers, leaving Yandan all alone.
Thanks for watching, and remember to like and subscribe for more.